This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectators, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
What's going on, spectators? This is Vancouver Comic Junkie, a.k.a. Chris. I'm here with one of my favorite guys in the world, Newbie Comics. And we're going to be taking over Spectales this episode as Jake and Jesus are busy moving houses for the month. So for the next month, you guys are going to be getting different co-hosts. And this week, you're lucky enough to get me, Vancouver Comic Junkie, and
Mr. Newbie taking over the radio. Is it actually a radio, though? It's like YouTube. So I guess like car, podcast, whatever. You guys get it. But what's going on, man? It is
we're riding the data stream.
Canadian takeover, too. So
it is it, dude. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. We're all Canadians, even our guest.
Yeah. Are we going to get paid in Canadian, do you think?
I hope we. I want American because it's worth so much.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. But what's going on, man? Yeah, we got a great guest today. Great show lined up. So yeah, I can't wait. This is like, I think my fourth or fifth time on here. So
well, you and I for a while there, we were kind of like fighting over who was the guest who's been on the most. I don't think either of us are number one anymore. No, I think somebody else has beaten us because they've ignored me for at least a year now.
Yeah. Jake, this was like the first time he called me like all year. I was like, dude, thanks.
But if you're listening for the first time, we're a podcast that basically talks about Grail tales. And we're going to bring on our guest, Rocksteady Collectibles. You can meet him on IG if you want. And his real name is Greg. But we'll call him Rocksteady. And he's going to tell us a Grail tale eventually. But we're going to do a few other things. But I'm going to introduce him. I'm going to bring him on right now. So, Greg.
How's it going?
Not too bad.
I feel like I'm supposed to have some speech where it's like long-time listener, first-time guest.
Yeah, totally. Do you listen? Are you a big fan of this podcast?
Yeah, it's great. It's fun, right? It's very different. It takes you on an adventure. It's storytelling, and I like.
Yeah, me too. And it's cool because everyone's really into it. And I find certain podcasts, it's just about how to make money. Like right away, like people are just talking about, like flipping books, like right away. And man, spec and stuff like that's one thing, but it's still like there's a group of us that are having fun doing it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's always an end game, and I find this podcast definitely attracts that kind of collector. So anyway, but Newbie, you got any questions for Rocksteady?
Rocksteady, I have to ask you: do you have a T-shirt of Spectales?
I do not have one.
All right, so we're going to have to change that. So Jake, Jesus, if you guys are listening, we need a T-shirt for Greg. But yeah, man, I'm excited to hear your Grail tale because, you have a distinct collecting, hunting. I've hunted with you. I know what you collect. I know what you're looking for. And it always amazes me because sometimes I'm like, I didn't even know this was a book. I didn't know this was a thing. It's just like all over the place. And I sometimes find myself being like, oh, this is what Rocksteady gets. This is what Rocksteady gets. And then I get excited for it. So it's interesting, man. And I'm really interested to see what your Grail tale is. I'm sure I've already heard the story like throughout our friendship, but it's going to be interesting and exciting to hear it over the airwaves. So I can't wait.
Did you went to Edmonton to see Greg, didn't you?
I did last year.
Yeah, I did it as well. Do you like going with you? Rocksteady, when we're in Edmonton, man, you could wear a person out. Like you're such an incredible, like you're a missile looking for books, man. It's you wore me out. I was burned out.
You said you wanted to go comic hunting.
Yeah, we did it, man. Yeah, I'd take a nap afterwards. It was brutal.
But Edmonton's a really interesting place for that comic hunting, right? Like there's tons of shops in a small area with no traffic.
You know what's crazy?
Like, you can do that. You're not getting burnt out in traffic. You're getting burnt out in the shops.
Absolutely. And I will say this, bar none, Edmonton is the best back issue city I've ever been to by a far margin. It is, especially in Canada. But like, I would even put it up against major cities in the States. It's incredible. You have so many back issue stores.
I told Greg, like, the whole time I was there, I was like, the comic community there too is like unreal. Everybody knows everybody. Like, everybody knows everybody. Everybody looks out for everybody. Like, if you're looking for a book, somebody will, like, you know, kind of help you out. There's, like you said, Chris, back issues, unreal. There was sometimes though, like, you know, Greg could even like attest to this, you know, like we would be at a shop and I was so tired from hunting that I would just like watch TV or watch a wall or like look at something. Like, I couldn't.
I was the same way.
You know, like I was like, holy crap. Like, I remember my wrist, my hand, everything, man. But I just, you know, it's an attestament to the comic community there. There's so many shops and, you know, so many good people. So I liked it out there, man.
Yeah. Remember you took me to that one off White Avenue.
Fever?
No, is it? No, it's not. That place is great. We Have Issues, which great owner, by the way. And as soon as we walked in, like, people were just introducing themselves. Like just, everyone just wanted to know you. It's like, and that's maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know, but it's like, it's wonderful. I just enjoy going there. I can't wait to go back. So sometime this summer, I'm going to come out again. I have to go out there. Yeah.
Let me know when. I'll burn you out again.
Oh, you will too. Yeah. But I'm probably going to come for a few days. I'll probably bring Greg and Rich, a couple of collectors from Calgary. Good people. So.
Thanks for the invite.
What's the invite? Well, hey, I guess you know what, man? You could fly out for like $150.
Yeah,
it's pretty cheap.
Swoop. I don't know. One of the other.
One of those cheap things. But we should probably move into recent. We're going to move into our first little section here. We have a script by Jake that was sent to us, and we're attempting to follow it, but we're just going to kind of raw dog it. And we're going to go into recent pickups.
Recent pickups.
It's like they were never gone.
I love that, actually. So recent pickups. Who wants to start first? Let's go with Rocksteady. You're the guest.
All right. So recently I had an opportunity to get some books from a shop that was going out of business. And they were kind of digging into the deep darkness of untouched books for a while. So my favorite book I recently got was the G.I. Joe's 19. It's the Snake Eyes Misfits cover. I think I showed you guys the picture of that. So as soon as I got it, I sent it away for grading. It came back at 9.6. So this is really the first time I've had it in my hands because it was kind of next day off to the graders kind of deal. So I'm super stoked on that. And I looked on the census and there's one other 9.6 and only one 9.8. And really? It is a pretty insane cover. So
what's the significance of that book?
So it's nothing really. Like 19 wasn't a first appearance or anything crazy. I just think those were the dark days of IDW and dark days of comics where it was super low ordered. And this was only a 1 in 10. And the fact that there's only 3 graded kind of blows my mind. Yeah, I think it just goes to show, like, trust your instincts. And if you haven't seen something before, odds are it's probably pretty rare, right?
I'm a big G.I. Joe guy, so I have to say I was titillated by that book. But
that's an understatement.
It's true. Yeah, it is an understatement. But I collect only 9.8, so unfortunately,
that was the message I got this, and then it was like a nose up emoji. Like that.
Well, hey man, when I started collecting G.I. Joe at 9.8, it wasn't hard to buy them. Like they were cheap. Like most of them were under $100. But now, wow, they're expensive. So anyway, I collect G.I. Joe 9.8s, and it probably was a big mistake to start at 9.8. But I have most of them
somewhere.
Anything else?
So I don't know if it counts because it hasn't arrived yet, but I guess I'll drop a little. I bought a book I was chasing after for quite a while. I got a book called Sentai #2. And I don't know if anybody knows about that book, but that's actually like the first appearance of Power Rangers. Power Rangers 1 isn't actually their first appearance. They appeared in this fanzine by Antarctic Press. And I saw one in a different group for very reasonable in high grade and was able to pull the trigger on it. So pretty excited to get that one too.
Well, first of all, fuck you for finding it because I want that book.
You know about it.
Oh no, I almost bought one last year, but the guy wanted $4,500 for a VF copy, and I'm not going to pay that much for it.
Wow.
And it was raw, so it's like, no, it's just crazy. And I have a sneaking suspicion you paid a lot less than that.
Oh yeah, way less. They've come down quite a bit on eBay, but I definitely paid a fraction of what was on eBay.
Oh man, well, good for you. Congratulations. That's a big, serious book.
Yeah, I really like it. And I think the print run was only $4,600, and it was a fanzine, and it probably sat in dollar bins. So there's not many out there in high grade. There's
How
a little
high
bit of
grade?
rust. So it's near mint, but there's rust on the staples. So I got to find somebody who can kind of take care of that a little bit. Like, it's not on the outside; it's on the interior fold. So I kind of got to get somebody to help me out with that a little bit. It's rubbed on.
I know someone. Hit me up. I know someone who could do it cheap.
Do I know the same guy?
Nope. I'm actually positive you don't know this guy. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
So, okay, yeah. But what about you, Newbie?
Well, I'm not sure if anyone's been following my blog, but that's actually a joke. I don't know if people actually listen to me.
I was more confused.
Yeah, no, I don't have a blog. Nothing against bloggers. No, one of my recent pickups, and if people have been following kind of my journey right now, is I kind of offloaded a lot of my collection and kind of just getting to the nitty gritty of what I want. So I just picked up oh man, Greg, I might even have to ask you, is it a 4.5? Yeah, 4.5 CGC FF 48. So I finally pulled the trigger on first appearance of Silver Surfer.
Congratulations.
So that was pretty big. Yeah. I'm starting to just go after we all know those guys on YouTube or even, comic people, you go to their house or you go to their shop, you watch them on YouTube and they got like a lot of slabs behind them. And that's what was ending up with me. I had a lot of slabs behind me and I was like, half of these I'm like, meh. Right. So I just kind of sold a lot. And, now I got Iron Man's first appearance, Silver Surfer. The next one will be Venom. Those are my 3 favorite characters. So it's kind of where I'm going.
It's not a bad way to go. Have you noticed that a lot of people, I'm noticing with a lot of our friends, a lot of guys are kind of bringing their collections down in size after COVID. And I think a lot of us might have overspent a bit or collected a little too many. And even though the prices are low right now and you could sell at a low price, it still equates to you acquiring good books, because the other books you want are cheaper now. So it's not a bad time to do it. I mean,
no, and I think
go book to book.
Yeah. And to your point too, right, Chris? Like, I think a lot of us just, lost track, right? We kind of were on that high of like, oh, I'll buy it and it'll sell for this or it'll sell for that. And unfortunately, those things didn't happen. And then you kind of have to look at your collection. Like, do you really want that or can you sell it?
Yeah.
So for me, it was just an easy, I'm going to get the books I want. And that was it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I one thing I've really focused on is I started really getting into specking, like we all have, like some modern book. No, in modern I mean from 2000 till now. Some random character that's going to turn up in a Marvel show. I'd go and buy like 15 copies of it, thinking I'll get a few 9/8 out of it. It'll pay it off, and I'll make a couple $100 that'll go towards something. And man, it got tiring, is what it did for me, and I just got bored with it. So I now have a storage locker full of spec books, like literally.
It was too easy, right? Like I think at that time, there were so many people out there trying to get the books. Like there weren't as many available. As soon as something would go on eBay, it would actually sell pretty quickly. So I also think now we have more time to make decisions, if that makes sense. And there's less haste. We don't feel the need to grab something to make a buck when, okay, if I take my time and make a good decision here, it'll pay off.
And, I think everything's changed though. New comic book day, flipping the market, just everything from A to B, you know, and it's unfortunate because some people are still thinking like, hey, it's 2020, you know, like Greg, we were at the show in Toronto when you came earlier in the year, and it was like, you know, I could literally tell you every book certain people had because they literally had the same books for the past 2 years and they had the same price tag on them, you know? So it's a different game, different era. And I'm interested to see what happens. I really am. Because
me too.
I think, and dare I say it, you know, I've said it on my platforms many times, but I was scared that we were going to have that fatigue. I thought we were going to get to that, you know, too much. And you're kind of seeing it with the shows. You're kind of seeing it with the movies. So I'm going to, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what the next 5 years holds.
I'll say this, though. I'm noticing it so about 6 months ago, it seemed like before Christmas, probably October, I guess. Okay. It seemed like that's where it really started to kick in. Like the prices were just declining rapidly. Yeah. It was getting scary at times. And I have to be honest, the last show I was at was really fun. It felt like going to a show before COVID. And people were buying the books they wanted. They were buying the cool stuff. They were buying the collection stuff they were buying before COVID, like before everyone needed to be like a money grubbing scumbag. You're like, you know, and we all fell into it a little bit, and it was really fun. So I'm not going to lie, I've got a couple of recent pickups that kind of fall into that. So like during COVID, if you know, I got an Avengers 85. This thing's like a 9.6. Like this wouldn't even like I would never even seen this book like during COVID. Like it would have sold under the table somehow before. And you know, I got a really nice VF copy of Avengers 9 First Wonder Man, you know. And like again, these are books like you can't, like, you couldn't have bought these before, like I in my neck of the woods. But you can get them now, and it's kind of cool. So, but I mean, if you know me on IG, you probably know some of these books. Like First Spectre was another book I bought recently.
I've been seeing a lot of that book lately, actually. A few
it's a cool ass book.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll throw it out. Like, I mean, First Silver Age Two-Face. These are books like they're DC books, and you know, I do think like when James Gunn does get the DC universe together, and that's still 2 years off. Like, it's not going to happen today. And when that does happen, I think there is a lot of opportunity with this. Talking if you want to spec, but just it might be a good time to buy them because you may never be able to buy them again. Because like really, this Two-Face Batman 234, which I have a nice 9.0 copy here. The price of this book is ridiculously low, but if you can get it now, like if you put it as a Marvel equivalent, like this is like a First Silver Age Submariner.
Yeah,
it's probably like that book. What's that go for? I mean, it's ridiculously expensive, but it's so cheap to buy these DC books, and honestly, they're fucking cool. So and also we've been so focused on Marvel for so long. It's like it's kind of awesome to like find new stuff. It's like you're collecting. It's still cool stuff. So I've really been enjoying that.
Because since the MCU spec game kind of slowed down, people seem to be a lot more into DC and the classics, and I think like they'll grow old well, if that makes sense.
But talking about, I couldn't agree more with you, Greg. By the way, Batman is just as iconic as Spider-Man. He really is. Yeah. And that's that. I mean, he has all these villains and stuff. They're all pretty cool. So yeah, just pay attention. It's out there and it's still cheap. It's still reasonable. It's a really great time to buy stuff right now. But I'm going to talk about one other thing I picked up recently, and you guys both know about this because you know we're all buddies. But is VHS tapes. Boom! I got first print Empire Strikes Back, sealed with watermarks on the back, white watermarks. This is a cool one. This is one I've always wanted. This one. So if you've been following, if you get Heritage Catalog, they have a new VHS, like incredible. They're selling all these incredible VHS tapes coming up. And CGC just got into the game. And on the cover of the new Heritage Catalog, they have a Blade Runner first print. And I have one, which I'm pretty fucking excited about. And I'm dying to see how that goes. So, yeah.
Are you, I don't want to get too much off the rails here, but are you sending all those off to CGC?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know, I've been waiting for CGC. Yeah. So I'm going to do a big, probably 25 tape submission next week.
Jesus.
Okay. Yeah, so
that's
$100. Dude, It's gonna be a big box. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then I also got a Halloween 1981 VHS with media watermarks. Yeah, these are like the one thing I know. It's weird. Not everyone loves VHS, obviously, because they don't connect to it or what have you. But if you're a movie fan, there's nothing cooler than getting like a first print of the first time this was available on media. It's been this weird thing for me. It's almost as exciting as picking up like a Amazing Fantasy 15. Like it's really that big for me. And I actually this week picked up a tape, which I still have in the mail, so I'm not going to announce it. But it is the biggest fucking thing ever. Like it's the holy grail of tapes for me.
Titanic with the deleted scenes.
It's a little bigger than that one. Yeah. It's really big, and I'm so excited. I haven't been this excited about a collectible in years since I got my Giant Size X-Men #1. Yeah, wow. So yeah, I'm excited about it. So follow me on Instagram; you'll eventually see it. And by the way, the market for VHS tapes, it's crazy. They're so aggressive. Like there's this like group of like more elite collectors within it who I've befriended a lot of them, and they will literally murder your mother for a tape. Like it is aggressive. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. So it took me a lot of work to get a few of the tapes, but a lot of going through back doors and it's just weird. It's not a fun group of people. It's like not all of them. Some of them are really nice, but like a lot of them are very cutthroat. Yeah. They get what they want. So anyway. What we're going to do now is we're going to move into the Grail Tale. And we're going to
Grail Tale.
And we're going to do a Grail Tale. And we're here with Rocksteady Collectibles to hear that Grail Tale from him. So
let's hear it, Greg.
Come on.
All right.
What's going on?
So I guess this was last October. I was at work and I got a random call from a guy I hadn't actually talked to since before the pandemic. We used to work together, and it was just weird picking up the phone. I was like, hey, like, is everything okay? Like, usually when it's something like that, it's usually bad news from someone you haven't heard from in a long time. But the words out of his mouth were, do you still collect comics and toys? And that to me was, you know, all of a sudden you stand up kind of and you're like, I'm going to go for a walk and take this call while you're at work, right?
Yeah.
So this guy is a hockey card collector, this friend of mine, and he was checking out a collection, and he walked into the basement and he saw comic books. And he said, hey, if you're selling these comic books, I know somebody. Let me give him a call. And the guy's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to get rid of them. Yada, yada, yada. So I arranged to go there after work. My friend doesn't know anything about comic books. So I was like, oh, what's in there? And he's like, oh, there's like Batman comic books and there's Marvel comic books, but that could be absolutely anything. So anyways, I got to this house. I met the owner and he took me downstairs into his basement. And this was like a house that wasn't lived in. It was well maintained, if that makes sense, but it was getting ready to be sold. So I go into this guy's basement, and I kid you not, there are 60 long boxes of comic books down there.
How many? Are you?
60 long boxes. Whew. So what was probably even more crazy than that is there were more sports cards than that in comic books.
Do you know a sports card? Are you a sports card guy?
I used to be a sports card guy. I never got crazy into it.
He's only got like 4 favorite hockey teams too, so you know.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like some people, like those, like if I saw 10,000 sports cards, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, whereas like some guys do know how to find that stuff, and there's some big money in that world.
I find cards are more overwhelming for me. Like I recently just came across a collection, and I had some really good ones, and you know, it was like, whoa. So yeah, it's overwhelming. Comics is easy. I find comics easy.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's just the foreignness, though. Probably like you spend a lot more time on comics. Cards to me are a little bit more straightforward. They're numbered, like they tell you the year on them. The grading is very simple. Like there's front and back and corners and edges. There's not insides like a comic book, and there's no moving parts on a card versus a comic book, which is I find a big difference. I would be able to like I could appreciate what was there. It was mostly modern cards, but there was a lot of unopened product. And I know a bunch of that unopened product was from Connor McDavid's rookie year, which
really,
yeah. So I saw 5 or 6 boxes of unopened Upper Deck.
Oh my god!
Did you buy it? Like, did you pick any of those up?
No, my buddy bought the entire hockey card collection.
Gotcha.
So he was just kind of saying, "Hey, there's comics here," and if I came across a big card collection that was too overwhelming for me, like he's probably the same person I would call. But yeah, so anyway, I'm talking to the guy. I'm like, where did all these comic books come from? So the story goes is that his father owned several pawn shops across Western Canada.
Yeah.
So he instructed the people who worked there, anytime comic books or hockey cards come in, just put them aside. I just take those home. So they were buying whatever was walking in the door. And I don't know how it was working like that, but this guy had a condominium in each of the places that he had pawn shops. And that's where he'd go when he was at that shop. And it was an investment thing. So unfortunately, this guy passed away. So it was to their children's surprise when they went to these condominiums that he owned, and they were full of comic books and hockey cards. So they actually had to do like this cross-country trip with a big truck and kind of stop at all these places and load them all up in, because all the boxes were pretty new long boxes. Like they didn't show like the yellowing and like the flimsiness that a lot of old boxes had. So that got me kind of, well, I was still excited because I didn't know what was in there, but I felt like I wasn't going to find anything old in these boxes just by looking. So they had brought them all to this one location, and he hadn't posted these on Marketplace or anywhere yet. So I was the first
Thank
person.
God.
Right? So I was the first person who got to look at it. He says, go ahead. I know there's a lot here. It's overwhelming. I'm like, what I'll do is I'll just give it a skim through. I'll have a general idea of what's here. And then we can talk price, and we can talk if I need to go through it further to get a better price to make sure I'm fair. So I opened the first box, and I think the 5th comic book in there was the Marvel Superheroes Doctor Doom issue in decent condition. So that was the 5th book. And then I went through and I realized, oh, this is a complete run of superheroes. And then it melded into Defenders.
Which, by the way, there's a lot of keys in that.
Just it's like a pretty monster. Yeah, it's a pretty monster set. And it's not, all things considered, that old of a set. But there's like big things that happen. Like, I think you have Captain Marvel. I think you have Guardians of the Galaxy in there. You have that Doctor Doom book. And it kind of goes on. So then that got me pretty excited, and knowing that there's 59 more boxes to go through, right? Wow. So, but then I hit the next box, and it was like 90s Batman comics that they printed a crap ton of, like year 3 and stuff like that.
You just peed on those.
Yeah, exactly. Like late 80s, early 90s Batman stuff, like million of each book out there kind of deal.
But I got to throw the thing about those books. I do think, like, we look at them now as garbage, but I remember looking at certain Marvel books like that as garbage too, like a few years back. They just need to get into the, there just needs to be an excitement around that series again. Like Superman may become the big deal now. Like you never know, and I wouldn't throw them away, is what I'm saying.
It happened. If that was the only box there, I would have been excited. But it's like jumping into a pool after you've been in the hot tub.
True enough.
And that kind of shock going from, a nice Bronze Age Marvel box to this stuff. And then there was like, and then I got into some of the other boxes, and it was more modern stuff, like not modern stuff, but like 90s, X-Men and stuff like that. And then I hit one box, and there's like 38 copies of X-Men 4, the first Omega Red. And then, so there were like weird chunks. So what had happened with this is, like I said, he would buy anything that came in, but this didn't come in as one lot. So there was probably within these long boxes maybe 50 collections. So none of it was in any sort of order. Well, it was in like a long box order, but it wasn't in any order with the rest of the collection.
Yeah. Wow. But wasn't that more exciting? To not know what was coming next at all times?
So it was very exciting, but then it kind of hit me at one point how much work this was going to be as well because of this, right? So they weren't bagged and boarded. Like they were bagged, some of them, but a lot of them were just like loose comics. Like none of these comic books have been touched for maybe, I'm guessing, 15 years.
Wow.
Just by telling what's in there. Even like the newest stuff that was in there was probably about 15 years old.
That would always like freak me out because I've been in like some collections where I'm looking through stuff and you get like those dead bugs, right? And you're going through books and you see the dead bugs, but like the book that you want is literally behind it. So like there's always that residue or like just, just like not indents, but you know what I mean? Like it ruins the book right behind it. So like,
but that's like shopping in Niagara versus shopping in Edmonton with all the bugs.
No, but like, but what I mean is like the fact that those boxes, 15, 20 years, so many collections, and it, there was no yellowing. It was like really conditioned really well. Like it goes to show you that this guy really cared, right? It wasn't like he just was like, oh, another collection, and then just threw it in. You know what I mean? Like he obviously took good care of these books.
Right, you would expect one or two boxes to have water damage or mold or something like that, and there was none of that. When you go through like maybe a back bin that hasn't been gone through a long time, or I don't know if you've ever picked up an old collection and you pull the books apart and they're like, shh, between the bags where they've kind of melted. That's one of the best sounds that you can hear in comic collecting.
When those bags are like that, they're almost like gelatinous. Like when you pull the book out and it makes the inks brighter for some reason, or maybe it's just like some mental thing. But like those books come out of there gorgeous of those bags for some reason. I love it.
It's always a surprise because the bag's so yellow, and you pull out the comic book and it's white, and you're like, how did this even happen?
Yeah, they're almost gummy. Yeah. That's exciting. I'm actually genuinely excited right now just thinking about that. As bad as that seems, but.
So I ended up spending about an hour there. At that point, I think they were stacked maybe 4 tall, and there was about 15 or 10 in a row, something like that. And there were a bunch of boxes kind of scattered around the basement. And
was this like a basement out of the movie 7?
Boxes. What's that? Sorry.
Was this like a basement out of the movie 7? Like it looked like a serial killer could be in this basement. Like what kind of basement are we talking about here?
So this was an unfinished basement in a nice neighborhood. It was a nice house, but it was weird because the house was like not really lived in. So I was like, oh, this big collection. You see nothing in the house. You expect to go into this basement and there being like 3 or 4 boxes, which would still be cool. But it was just like coming around the corner and just, whoa. It was like when Dr. Grant saw the dinosaurs for the first time, right?
I should always bring the soundtrack to Jurassic Park whenever I go look at a collection now.
And just have that meme.
You probably end up racking your price up because you're so excited. But,
that's it too. And I was telling the guy because of the story and I try to be fair, and I think what goes around comes around. So I didn't want to be like, oh, there's nothing here. I'll give you $5 a box just to get rid of it to save you the junk removal fees, right? Like. Yeah. I couldn't play it like that. So I went through a few more boxes and I found like a full run of Ninja Turtles. Like none of the magazine-sized ones were there, but the rest of them were there. 2 runs of Star Wars. Then it was getting into some older stuff. And then I came across one box and it was all silver. So I was seeing, and I don't know much about DC, but it was like 12-cent Wonder Woman and 12-cent Green Lantern. And at that point, you don't even need to know about DC to know like those are good books.
Yeah, that's like a rule of thumb, right? You see 10 cent, 12 cent, you're like, yeah. I'll
And
take
Greg,
it.
what kind of condition are we talking about? Like on average for like Silver Age stuff?
So the Silver Age stuff, I sold a bunch to a local shop here, and he sent a bunch away to get graded, and they were coming around 7, 8 range for like those red and yellow Wonder Woman covers. There was the first appearance of like Jon Stewart and stuff like that in there. Really high grade.
That came back in 8.5, I remember. Because I was going to buy that copy, and then I chickened out.
And actually, to be honest, like Silver Age DC it's pretty common knowledge, but they're really tough to get comparatively to a Marvel book of the same era. They just are. And I think they had a younger age, like reader base, I think is what it was. That's what I was doing.
I find the covers are more color blocked. Like there's a lot more filled in on those, and they show wear so much when it's yellows and reds and bright colors. But yeah, it was pretty nice stuff. So I talked to the guy and I looked at the boxes there, and I was like, "Hey, I'm interested. I'll be honest with you. This is a very good collection. This is like I've been doing this a long time, and this is probably the best thing I've come across." Because he knew nothing. He knew books had values and stuff like that. And he said, "Okay, like, did you want to make an offer?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, I'm probably going to have to go in on this with someone. Like, this is that significant." And he was like, kind of taken back a little bit. He's like, "Oh, like that's significant." He's like, "Okay, when can you meet?" And I said, "What are you doing at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning?" And this is at like 7 p.m. on a Friday right now. And I'm saying, "What are you doing at 8 a.m. on Saturday?" And he's like, "Okay, like make it work." So I called my buddy. I was like, "Dude, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I need you here tomorrow morning. We've talked about this. This is the one that we've talked about." So we get there tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. So the owner said he had a little bit more time for us to go through it, and we started digging a little deeper. And that's when we started finding things like, first Peacemaker, like Charlton one, Marvel Premier full run, like with Iron Fist and all those gems. And it kind of kept going until we hit a box that had some silver Spider-Man in it. And then I found like first Rhino for like Spider-Man 100 that we just had come back in a 9.2, which is pretty massive for that book, if you ask me, with the black cover. And then the piece that kind of got us nudging each other was I came across a Hulk run. So I went through the box and it was like 168, 169, and then there was like a bunch in the 170s. And then there was no 180, no 181, and then there was like 4 182s. Okay. So I was like, oh man. That's kind of that, and like GSX and X-Men 1 are kind of like the books you really want to find in those collections, right?
Rails, man.
Yeah, something for me has been like, okay, if you can pay off a lot with just a few books, then you know it's a good purchase. Then the rest might be work, but it's gravy. It's no rush, that kind of idea. So I pulled out the 180s to show my buddy, and I noticed there were 2 comic books in one of the bags. Like I said, no boards, just bags. And in behind one of the 182s, there was a 181.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That's what you want.
And we pulled it out, and we looked at it, and we were like, shit, this is a nice one, too.
Don't say anything to anyone.
That's right.
Put it in your pants.
Exactly. So we're nudging each other. My buddy's like, take a picture of that, take a picture of that, take a picture of that. You know, that kind of stuff under his breath. And so anyways, we looked at it and finished going through, and I was blown away. There was boxes of like 80s garb in there, like Independent and stuff, like weird anime stuff. Some of it had value, some of it didn't.
America stuff too.
A couple boxes of like Conan magazines that didn't really have much value, that weren't in good shape. So we kind of offered him a significant value. So we offered him 5 figures right off the hop for this collection. And that's when it kind of hit him, and he was like, this is a big decision now. I don't know if he realized it was going to be that big of a decision. And I think that number said, hey, you know what? I have one other person who I'm going to reach out to, and I'm going to show them the collection. Like, you have to understand, if I don't do my due diligence. And he said, okay. And then, you know, I get into my mode where it's like, okay, what's your right now number? Like, what would you be very happy with? And he came back at kind of double that, just because, you know, what I said. And I said, okay, like, I think you need to understand, it's like, I'm being fair to you. I need to make $1. This is a lot of work. You need a lot of connections. I'm going to have to set up at shows to move this. That kind
and bag and board everything alone and the work. Yeah. Like, it's an incredible money.
It would have been $4,000 or something like that to bag and board everything. Which
and the time, because you get, you know, I don't know about you, but my time's worth money. So that adds up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And just like, and you're back too, right? Just doing all this. And the thing is a lot of them were in bags with that old crappy tape. So you were taking it out of a crappy bag just to put in a boarding bag. So, yeah. So we had this conversation with him, and he's like, I got to show this other guy this collection. And he's really into horror. I forgot to mention, there was a lot of horror in there. Not like EC pre-code horror, but it was like the newer rights and stuff. Like,
do you have still that stuff? Do you still have?
Yeah, a bunch of Charlton.
Let's talk.
I think is what they are.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I love that stuff. That's some of my favorite stuff in the world.
Yeah, and there was like, and it actually made me have an appreciation for it, because I hadn't seen a lot of those covers in person, and I've always breezed by them. But when you're actually looking them all up for value and whatnot, there's some cool stuff in there. So this guy, we're like, okay, like, call us back. So this other guy apparently rushed over as soon as he got the call. And this was a friend of a friend who was into horror stuff. And then we got a call about 2 hours later, so maybe around lunchtime at that point. And he was like, okay, I just showed the other guy the collection, and he only offered me $2,000 for the whole collection, saying he was only really into the horror and he didn't know what to do with the rest of it. And I said, so my buddy and I had talked over this time, and it's just like waiting for this call is like waiting for a call from the doctor, or like, it was like intense, right? You know, like, okay, did he call yet? Did you hear anything yet? Like, and it's been,
do I have cancer? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I know, I've been there, man. It's the worst.
Yeah. Hello? No, I don't need duct cleaning. I hope I didn't miss a call.
It just reminded me of, like, and I think Jake will appreciate this, but it reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Homer's waiting for a call, so he calls Moe at the bar, and he's like, Moe, I'm just calling you to see if my phone is working. Give me a call back. So then Moe calls him, and he's like, Moe, what are you doing calling? They could have called. For what it reminded me of. But I know Jake will appreciate that. So
yeah, so basically he said, okay, you guys are obviously serious and aren't jerking me around. And that's what he kind of understood at that point, that I was also helping him, right? So we came to an agreement on a number. Well, he came back at a number, and I said, what if I can have it all out of there tomorrow? And he was like, oh, yeah, I'll take it out.
This is also a good moment. You should take a pause whenever you're buying a collection, where you could actually, like, pretend that you could kill him, or you could hurt him physically. Yeah. And then, like, get that price down a bit. I'm just saying.
So I flashed my 8mm, and he gave me a couple thousand off.
In your pants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
this
it's
is an
inside
American
a roll of
podcast
in my pants. Yeah, in my back pocket. But yeah, so we came to this agreement, and then the next day was getting it all out of there. So we rented a trailer, we loaded up a pickup truck, so it was a full of one of those small U-Haul trailers that you rent, and it was a full pickup truck and a full car. And it was one of those ones where like, where's that one box? Where's that one box? Make sure that goes in the cab, kind of thing, right? And I just had these nightmares of these like long boxes on this trailer, just like fluttering behind me on the highway. So, you know, just getting home was exactly. So getting home was just as nerve wracking. But you know, this had been a stressful 2 days waiting for the call. Like it's a lot of money too, right? Like that we're dealing with here. So there's the risk in that, and then there's the excitement and like, you think I could sleep the night before just like thinking about this? Like this is a once in a lifetime thing. Well, hopefully not, but it is a once in a lifetime thing. And
yeah.
So we brought it home and we put it in my buddy's garage, and we went through it for about 3 hours, just pulling out keys that we needed to move inside, just in case once in a lifetime this was the flood day or anything like that. So it was, those 3 hours were one of the most exciting 3 hours. But yeah, so like to go through 60 long boxes carefully, there's obviously going to be a lot of stuff you missed. And that's when we kind of paid more attention to the junk boxes. And we were finding like 20 comics or 20 copies of each of the Sonic miniseries, Simpsons comics, and just some of that like stuff that holds value that I think wouldn't have jumped out at me at first. Like Lethal Protector, we pulled out 25 of them and they were all newsstand. So it's super interesting where these all came from. And how all these, I don't know, all these books got accumulated.
Yeah, sorry to pause you, but like you're talking about, like the stuff you're talking about, this modern stuff would have been a coup to get in a collection anyway. But you have so many amazing things that you don't give a shit about it. Like it really is almost meaningless comparatively to the big stuff. That's how good this collection is.
And what's really interesting is how it opened my eyes to what books are harder to get versus easier to get. Because you hear like people are like, oh, there's 1 million of those, or there's 500,000 of those, and an Omega Red first appearance still goes for $40, you know? And then you get all of those and you're like, this maybe isn't the book I should be chasing. Because when we're at a time like this and there are a little bit less collectors and they're moving stuff, those are going to be the tough books to move if you're an investor, speculator kind of person.
Yeah.
So this collection taught me a lot about what is common, what did everybody have in their collection, and what was really rare. And the silver DC stuff kind of stands out to me. Some of the square-bound Marvel stuff. So we ended up going through the whole collection. We ended up getting about 15 books graded. We had to make some of the money back, so we set up at a show just maybe a month or two afterwards and scrambled to get enough boxes together. And we actually moved quite a bit of stuff and made quite a bit of the money back, which was pretty important. But of the books we graded, nothing would compare to that Hulk 181. So we sent it out east to get cleaned and pressed. And then what you really want to get kind of sometimes is that email from CGC saying it needs to go express because of the value of the book. I was like, okay, any doubts in my mind that it could somehow be a fake or anything like that, or that I missed the Marvel value stamp. I'm like, I looked at it like 4 times. And I was like, but yeah, so we ended up getting that back and it came back in 9.0. And
pretty good.
Yeah. So we were pretty pleased because that kind of, after the first show and knowing what that book was, that covered the cost of the collection. I always thought a really expensive book would be tough to move because there's only so many buyers. But it was all the high end stuff that really started to move, right? We would bring 20 boxes to a show and say $2 each, and people just wanted to see the keys. And I think that might be a little bit of the nature of where we're at in the collecting world right now. But there were a lot of run fillers and stuff like that. But yeah, nothing beat that Hulk 181.
Well, and they sell because they're desirable. Like, I mean, everyone wants a Hulk 181, period. there's very few who don't. So no matter how many there are out there, they're always going to be desirable.
And that's what I hate about certain people is the ones that don't have it or or haven't experienced having it. Their first argument is, well, there's so many of them, and it's like,
fuck
okay,
that.
yeah, but it's still like a desirable book, and it's still an expensive book, right? Like you look at some of these, this one, New Mutants 98, ASM 129. Yeah, there's a shit ton of them out there, but people fucking want them. Like people want them in their collection, and they're still like top dollar books. Like,
well, it's funny because I'm a touch older than you gentlemen, but in the 90s, I was in I think it was the Orange County Comic Con. It was called. There was like a Comic Con in LA that I used to go to, and they had. I remember this, like every table had like minimum 4 or 5 FF48s. Like that book was there was one table that had like 15 or 20 of them.
Yeah,
like. And there wasn't one that was over $100, and like that for the mintiest mint copy you get, $100. And everyone's like, meh. I mean, everyone wanted it. It was still Silver Surfer's first appearance, but it wasn't like it was like the first appearance of Century. Like everyone's like, but look at that book now, man, it's crazy. But I mean, it was still desirable, but there was just what I'm getting at is how many were printed. There's just so many in the market. It was overwhelming how many there were.
And at that time, there weren't as many titles, right? Like that's FF days.
True.
You had X-Men and Hulk, and I'm sure you had Batman and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, but it wasn't miniseries. It wasn't one shots.
Oh, yeah.
If you had a shop, you had all the same titles as every other shop had.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and it's funny when you look at because you guys know modern stuff better than I do, but I watch you guys because you guys do a show every week and kind of talk about the cool books to pick up. And I am over the cool books for the cool kids. But I'm overwhelmed by how many books come out every week.
Oh yeah,
absolutely overwhelmed by it. It just blows me away. But I mean, they must be putting them out because people are buying them. So what do I know?
The amount of books plus the amount of covers plus the store exclusives. It's very easy to get swarmed, and I think that's why a lot of people have gotten out of the spec game because they just understand it's not sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but wow, I gotta tell you, is your story's over? Is it still going?
Yeah, so we've sold off quite a bit of it, but we still have about 30 long boxes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what this is a Grail collection story, gentlemen. That's not
this is a first. Yeah, they're going to be surprised. Listeners,
yeah.
even Jake and Jesus, when they hear this, it's not a Grail
Am
tale.
I fired?
We set a new fucking standard, is what we did.
Yeah.
That's what Canadians do. What?
Canada. You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, we're awesome. So I gotta be honest, man. I'm pretty jealous. I actually talked to you on the Sunday of that weekend on the phone. Remember? And you were telling me you were just unloading one of I think it was the trailer. And I gotta be honest, I fucking hated you for about 3 minutes, just out of pure jealousy. But it went away, and I was really proud of you actually. So because
I was really grateful.
It was amazing what you found.
I was really grateful for your call because this was the first time I'd ever bought anything like this, and you had been through it, and your advice, and that's like what the community is about, and I really appreciated that. And Newbie was kind of there, like I was sending pictures as the day was going on, and I just kind of kept getting the WTF, WTF, WTF.
I was
give me 200 for that 181.
I was excited for you, man, and with just this conversation and stuff, and I was talking to you, not to one up Chris here, but like I was also talking to you. I know Black Crown was talking. We were talking when you were getting this, and man, I got to say, you are a gem because one of the first things that you did was, guys, what books are you looking for? Yeah. What books do you want? You were upfront with us. You were honest. And then when the books came back, you gave us a fair price. And that was pretty dope of you because you didn't have to do that. You could have gone the very greedy route and got whatever, but you offered it to us first. And I'll always be appreciative of that. 100%. So
one thing I have to ask though, is why did you only grade 15 books? It seems like you would have done a better grading more, or or has the market changed that much?
No, I think so. I can look at a modern book and say this is a 9.8 or it's not. I am a modern collector, so we talked about this off a little bit before, but I didn't keep very much from this collection at all. Like, I'm into art and high ratio comics and those modern grails, right? So when I look at the silver stuff, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's a 3 or a 6.
Really?
Also with that, like, we had quite a bit of money tied up in it, right? So we sold off a bunch to recuperate that so we could have time. Even just the storage of it, like, you aren't prepared for it. And to bring in 60 boxes, my buddy's garage was always like, we gotta, before it gets minus 25 here in Edmonton, you know, we gotta be able to get my wife in the garage so she can park there in the evening. And so
just for the Americans, just for the Americans, I just need to say, like, where Greg lives, if you get a pot of water and you walk outside in the middle of winter and you throw it in the air, it comes down as like ice. Like, it's that fucking cold. It'll kill you kind of cold. So anyway.
Yeah. So I think once it gets around minus 35 Celsius and Fahrenheit kind of meet up. So, and then minus 35 isn't a rare thing in the winter where I'm from.
Oh.
That's Canada, man. Canada and Siberia. Those are the only 2 places.
Not where I live, gentlemen. Not where I live.
Yeah,
no.
I couldn't handle it.
In the Beverly Hills of Canada.
This is true, but it costs a lot, and it's stressful. How expensive it is here. But we got to start speeding this up because we've been just yammering on here. We're going to move into another section here, and that is called
Speculation.
Ooh.
So we're going to be talking about a little bit of spec. Like, if it's 1 book, 10 books, whatever you got, do you guys have any spec books that you could recommend to the audience that maybe you're the only guy kind of going after it and you just have an idea in your head that there's a future in this book?
Who wants to go first?
Yeah.
Your turn, Newbie.
Yeah, Newbie. You've been quiet all day.
What? I'm just, I'm just with the popcorn and just watching, listening. So, you know what? To kind of piggyback off Chris, because I've had, conversations with Chris, and Chris has actually mentioned this a few times, but, just the DC stuff. It's super cheap. One of the biggest DC books that I've been going after right now is Poison Ivy. I think it's because, I like redheads. But it's one of those books that surprisingly keeps going up. And I think it's because it's also one of those rare ones that it's not like the first Silver Age, right? So like you were talking about, Batman 234 and things like that, those characters, first Silver Age appearance of them, but they're still affordable right now. Greg, you knew I was even looking at those Lantern books, right? Until I kind of had to stop and pause on that. But yeah, I think if you're smart and you're educated, you see what DC's doing. I mean, the competition's got to come and start at some point. All the books are down right now, so it just makes sense to go after them. I'm not going after all of them, but definitely certain ones for sure.
That's Batman 182. Is that the issue?
181.
181.
Yeah, I'm sure. Man, I was looking at I was seeing like 7.0, 7.5s and the prices. I'm like, what? Why isn't this?
What are the prices like? What are they like?
Like a 7.5 is like north of like 1,600 Canadian, something like that.
So for you Americans, that's like 1,300, 1,200 US. That seems like a fucking deal.
And a kidney and pair of Jordans, I'm assuming.
Wow. Well, hey, that's a pretty good spec. I mean, it's not a cheap spec, but it's a good one.
No. And Chris, Greg also. Poison Ivy, it's their ace up their sleeve. They're holding that card. They got, Harley Quinn. Punchline, I think, is going to be a long time away, but like what they could possibly have in Poison Ivy is the same thing that they could have had in Harley Quinn, in my opinion. The markability, the image, everything. So I think down the road, that's going to be one of those books that people will say, well, I saw it all the time, but didn't pull the trigger.
I don't disagree. And you know what? Even if it doesn't become what you just said it becomes, the character is going to be a relevant character in the next decade. And it's also already a relevant book and a cool book to own. So I think it's a great book. I actually have. Well, Greg, why don't you throw a spec our way? You're a modern guy, man. You probably have shitloads of good stuff.
Turok 1.
Yeah, besides the Turok 1, I'm actually speculating on a few artists right now, but particularly there's some Matt Groening books I want to get.
Really?
And I'm actually hunting for them. So Matt Groening did some stuff before The Simpsons. And there's a comic book out there from 1983 called Who Be Boo. And it's like this indie punk comic book that Matt Groening did. But he did a bunch of, like, I think it was called like Work Life or Work Days with that bunny. I don't know if you remember in The Simpsons where they'd have the sex talk and they would have those two bunny characters. Those were actually original Matt Groening characters where he would have these comic strip books. And they were closer to like the Calvin and Hobbes style, but designed for adults and about work and stuff like that. And there's some of those that I'm searching for right now.
That's a fucking awesome spec, dude. A Matt Groening like first art is awesome. I didn't even consider that an option.
But you know what the other one is too, though, and Greg, we've actually talked about it a few times because BC got one, and I'm kind of jealous. But like even I had mentioned, right, like the first Simpsons, like even though it's we're taking it we're taking it for granted almost. Like I think once that show is kind of done, or they announce, hey, this is going to be the end of the show, that's going to be a sought after book. Like the first Simpsons. And a lot of people see it. You see it all the time. There's not that many 9/8, but that's another one, like
what does that go for these days in 9/8?
9/8 is like $600 to $700 Canadian.
But that's the Bart Simpson stories one, right? Not the Simpsons number one.
Yeah, that's the Bart Simpson one. Yeah, that's a lot of people go for that Simpsons one with like the Fantastic Four homage one. That's not it. It's the one with Bart Simpson on it. That's the one that you want.
Oh, interesting. Wow. I'm excited. I love this. I didn't even consider these books. Now I want them. Right? That's why I mean, comics.
$600 now, but then, if they come out next year and say, hey, this is it, you know how it works. Like it's going to be sought after. Everyone's going to talk about it. Everyone's going to be a Simpsons fan. You're going to get new collectors, old collectors, boom, that doubles, triples, who knows? But I think that's just the way it's going to go down the road. So definitely want to have one of those.
Cool. Well, I think that's great. So I have a spec book. My spec book is Teen Titans 20, which I'm showing you guys right now in a 9/8. The reason why I like this book is there's this character named Crush, and we were chatting earlier about a character becoming like the next Harley Quinn, and I really believe that this character could be the next Harley Quinn in the movies. Lobo is going to be coming to the DCEU in the next 3 or 4 years. I think that's exciting. If Jason Momoa is actually been cast as him, and it looks like it might be the case, that character is going to go through the fucking roof. And every character associated with him is too. And I just think you can pick this book up for like $5. No one gives a shit about this book. Just go buy one. Yeah. And it's just, I know I was bitching earlier about buying too much spec stuff like this, but this is one I actually really believe in. And I picked
up. What are they going for on a 9/8?
$70.
Okay.
$80. Yeah,
very cheap. Very cheap.
Very cheap. And they turn up all the time and no one gives a shit. But
yeah.
So I picked that up. And another book I'm picking up lately is Fantastic Four #1 or Ultimate Fantastic Four #1. There's another one it's for the character The Maker, which is like Reed Richards. He's in the future and he's like a bad guy. And I don't know. There's something about this character I just love. And there's another key for him, and I think it's Ultimate Comics number 13. I think it is. I could be wrong. You'd have to look it up. It's another key where he actually gets named as the Maker. But I don't know. I just find him really interesting. And again, like they're so cheap. I picked up a 9/8. I think I got it for $40, 30 or 40 bucks. Like they're cheap. So yeah. I like that kind of,
right?
it's a low risk move, but it's still fun. It's still fun to do it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you always get your money back. It's not like that book's going to go below $40 probably.
Yeah.
That's pretty low tier. But saying that, with the new market the way it is, I have been seeing a lot of the spec stuff that are garbage spec. Like you'll see 9.8s going for like $13 on eBay.
It's crazy right now.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, exactly. But I think we're going to have to shut her down because we've been going for like an hour and 20 minutes, I think. I want to thank everyone for being here. And I got to ask Rocksteady, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Rocksteady Collectibles. And you can find me in the Newbie-verse every Tuesday. We're hanging out. We're talking new comic book day. And hopefully I'll be doing more Sundays with Black Crown as well on YouTube. So go check out those two
Black
channels.
Crown's a cool dude.
Yeah.
Do you guys do a great show, by the way? I just wanted to point it out. It's the most fun group of people in the chat in the comic world, in my world. I just enjoy it so much. There's so many in jokes and everyone has fun. It's a great time. Yeah.
We appreciate the chat. That's for sure.
Yeah. Thanks. Man. Yeah.
What about you?
You could find me where Rocksteady is at Newbie Comics on Tuesday. And, I'm always posting stuff, comics, toys, video games. I'm kind of dabbing into a little bit of everything now. Kind of going full circle with, Newbie Comics and collectibles. Because a lot of times people be like, it's just Newbie Comics. I'm like, yeah, but it's a little collectibles. So, I think it's a good time to just be into pretty much everything right now. And a lot of things are affordable. So trying to stay away from cards though. But you can find me on Instagram, Newbie Comics, or YouTube at Newbie Comics. Almost there to 4K. So we'll probably be giving away some free stuff. So come hang out.
You must be getting really rich now.
Rich. Yeah.
Off YouTube.
Rich with enlightenment. How about that?
Yeah. The love of my fans. I'm a Vancouver Comic Junkie. You can find me on IG and YouTube. I haven't done a video in a while, and I actually am on strike right now with the unions. I'm in the film industry, and so I have a lot of time. And you'd think I'd make videos, but I've yet to do it. But I plan on doing something. And I have a lot of VHS and comics that I really need to show off. So I'll probably do something soon, I hope. So go to YouTube, Vancouver Comic Junkie. Check me out. But thanks, guys. This was great. And,
hold on a second. Thank you, Jake and Jesus, for letting us run the show. We appreciate you guys and trusting us with this responsibility. I want to thank you guys for sure. So hopefully next time I do this, Jesus and Jake are on it.
Well, before I was so rudely interrupted by Newbie.
And I
was literally going to say the same fucking thing.
I also want to thank Greg for hopping on, So.
Oh yeah, Greg's here. Yeah, I forgot about that. No, seriously, it was awesome.
I'm right here.
Hey, everyone, have a good night, and we'll talk soon. Come back to Spec Tales anytime.